another. So that's what I want to talk about, developing human relationships. Again, we still on the same theme, on the same subject, Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 16. And I want to talk about this. The questions that I want you to answer is, can you get along with everybody? Have you resolved relationships where there's anger, frustration, bitterness, unforgiveness? Are you focusing on those relationships? Can you get along with other people? Now that's important. Now I'm trying to explain to you. Now everybody look at me now, because you got to really get these lessons, because your Christianity and your religion don't mean nothing. Don't tell me how much you love God if you're not willing to resolve some of these relationships. It shouldn't be nobody as you as a Christian that you hate, that you can't forgive, that you can't deal with. Now, hell, God put up with more from you. The stuff that you say you ain't gonna do, the stuff you don't do, the stuff that you fail at, and he did with you anyway. He demonstrate grace to you, you demonstrate grace to other people. He forgives you, you forgive other people. God is angry with you, but he gives you another chance. You got to stop this stuff about being so hard on people. When God is gracious and merciful towards you, you got to be gracious and merciful toward other people. That's what I really want to get the Christian community to really embrace, is that these human relationships are important. And Jesus is not going to give you credit for the people that you love, that love you. It's going to be the people that don't love you. He didn't say love your friends. He said love your enemies. He didn't say forgive your friends. He said forgive your enemies. Pray for your enemies, those who despitefully misuse you. That's where the credit is going to be given. So you sitting up here talking about you can get along with the people that love you. No, that ain't what you get credit for. You get credit for loving the people that's hard to love, that don't love you. That's where you start getting credit with God. And that's where your Christianity becomes a demonstration to a lost world and becomes a witness to the world that can draw people to faith in God, because they see the Christian living an exemplary life and the Christian letting their Christianity be a demonstration. Now, let me give you this one. Now, we're going to be talking about honoring your father and your mother. Now, if there's ever a topic we need to be talking about, it's this topic, because all these other topics that we've been talking about, which is anger, frustration, and rage, and unforgiveness, really goes back to the foundation of the family, the foundation of the home. If you come from a dysfunctional home, you can't do anything about that. You have to learn to adjust, because there is no such thing as a normal home where everything is perfect. Everything at some level is dysfunctional. All of us come from a dysfunctional home. I don't care whether you have a loving father and mother. In some way, that situation was not perfect. And so all of us come from a dysfunctional home. Now, when you talk about honoring your parents, God gave that commandment to the children of Israel when they came out of Egypt. And one of the things that Jesus says, he repeats that. Paul, in the epistles to the church at Ephesus in chapter 6, also repeats that. So God says it, Jesus says it, and Paul repeats it. Honor your father and your mother. And it's the only commandment that comes with a promise that your days may be long and prosperous is in the land, is what God promised them. Now, honoring your parents is twofold that I really want to teach, and that is this. You honor them when you are young and when they get old. That's where you owe honor. Now, I really took some time this morning as I was doing my volunteer work to think about, what does the word honor mean? The word honor means to put weight on it. You really need to honor your parents. Now, one of the guys I was reading and studying this morning told me to tell you this. I can send any one of you out this door right now and go outside and tell you to find some dirt. You know how easy it is to find dirt out there? It's in plenty supply. You don't have to go far from the door to find dirt. The easiest thing to find is dirt. And the hardest thing would be if I told you to go outside and find some precious metals, such as silver, gold, precious stone. That's hard to find. You have to look really hard. You got to look really intense, and you got to look really deep. The easiest thing to find is dirt. And the illustration he gave in sharing that analogy is this. It's easy to find a reason not to like a person or to honor a person. It's hard to find something to really find a reason to give honor to a person to whom honor is due. Easy to find dirt. In other words, to find a reason not to honor a person. But Jesus is teaching, so God is teaching, Paul is teaching to honor. And so really what you have to really do is to look deep and hard to find a reason to honor your father and mother. They might have never been there for you. They might have neglected you. They might have brought you into the world in some unpleasant and not the most ideal circumstances. But one of the reasons why you ought to honor your father and mother, because without them, you wouldn't be here. If they didn't do nothing right, if they neglected you, wasn't there for you, and this guy went as far as if you grew up in an abusive or a neglected situation, you still have to honor them for the reason, if it wasn't for your mama and daddy, you wouldn't be here. And for that reason, you ought to honor them. That's where you have to dig down deep. And for no other reasons than the fact that you wouldn't be here without them, you owe them honor. Regardless of how you got here, without them, you wouldn't be here. And so one of the writers wanted me to share with you, you owe your parents honor for the fact that without them, you wouldn't be here. You would not be here if it wasn't for your mama and daddy. You didn't choose to come here. They facilitate you coming here by getting together and producing you, whether it was in a union of marriage or outside the union of marriage. They got you here by their union. And by that very fact, you owe them a level of honor. And the word honor literally means you esteem them. You hold them in high regard. And you give them their proper due for the fact that without them, you wouldn't be here. There would be no you. And so he says, honor your father and your mother. And that's important for us to understand that your parents are responsible for you being here. You got to hold them in high regard and honor and esteem. Now, that might mean you don't agree with a lot of the decisions they made after you got here, but you ain't got nothing to do with the decisions they made before you got here. Ain't the truth what I'm saying? The decisions they made before you got here ain't got nothing to do with you, and you should have no emotions attached to anything that happened before you got here. You want me to explain it to you even deeper? It doesn't matter what they did before you got here because you wasn't here. And how they got together and what the circumstance was behind them getting together, you wasn't even here. Now, you can be connected to the decisions they made after you got here, but you really can't change that. You really can't change that. But before you got here and your mama tell you your daddy wasn't worth nothing, well, that ain't got nothing to do with you. You picked him, you slept with him, you produced me. That was your choice. But you don't hold any animus against either your mother or your father based on what your parents tell you after you get here about what the circumstance was before you got here. Because that ain't got nothing to do with you. And so you mad about something your daddy did to your mama before you got here, that ain't got nothing to do with you. So you see what I'm saying? They don't think that way, but that ain't got nothing to do with nothing. So I'm just trying to explain to you how important this idea of honor. You owe your parents honor for the fact that if it wasn't for them, you would not be here. Period. So let's talk about this idea of after you get here. Okay, now you're here. and your parents, they stay married, and they raise a great family, you're a part of that family. And so much good comes out of them being a unit, a mother and father within the confines of marriage. You have a great life. You owe them honor. Okay, what if they don't stay together after you're born and they go their separate ways? Okay, you still owe your father and your mother honor. If they don't stay together, you are to respect them for the positions that they hold as your father and your mother. Whether they stay together ain't got nothing to do with you. Those are two grown people who choose and realize that they cannot stay together for whatever reason. Now, your father go off and have a whole nother family and produce more children. Still, that ain't got nothing to do with you. He's still your father. If your mother decides to leave your father and go out here and get another man and marry another man, have more children, and leave you with your father, she's still your mother. Period. You owe her a level of honor. I'm really trying to drill that into you, because so much of what we blame today for the trauma that we have as children or as kids or as adults now, we blame our parents. At some point, the blame game has to be over. You have to take some personal responsibility. Yeah, you got trauma. Who in here don't have trauma from their childhood? Because sometimes you can grow up in a very stable home with a loving mother and father and still be traumatized. You're not immune from having some difficulties as a child because you have the perfect and ideal situation. So Deuteronomy chapter 5, he says, honor your father and your mother. And he says, as the Lord your God has commanded you. God commands you to honor your father and your mother. Now, I'm going to really get a little deep into this because I want to go to when Jesus talked about it, but also in Ephesians chapter 6, where Paul says, children, obey your parents, for this is right in the Lord. Then it says, fathers, provoke not your children to wrath. And I really want to get into that because there's a lot of reasons why our society is in the shape that it's in. And one of the reasons why it's in the shape that it's in is because of this parent and children relationships. They are broken, they are strained. There's no more respect. There's no more respect that children demonstrate and show toward parents. Parents have become weaker, children have become stronger. Children have taken over some of these homes. And I'm telling you right now, according to the scriptures, the husband and wife relationship, the mother and father relationship is more important than the child and parent relationship. The most important relationship you have as a husband and wife is the husband and wife relationship. That should be the strongest relationship. Your children are not more important than your marriage. Your children are not important than your relationship with the person you decided to have a child with. You got to make sure you maintain that relationship. If you value the relationship with the person that you brought a child in the world with, you have a better chance of raising a stable, more secure, a more productive child. But when you start putting that child first instead of the relationship of a husband and wife, a relationship between two people who brought that child into the world, that's when you have problems. These children have hijacked the family, hijacked the relationships, and so therefore, children think they're way more important than what they are. You know what Paul says in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 1? Children, obey your parents. That's the only directive. Then he says, fathers, provoke not your children to wrath. Paul says the most important part of this relationship, this dynamic between husband and wife and children, is for children to obey your parents. Be under the authority, the direction, and be submissive to your parent. We have really reversed what Paul says in Ephesians. Ephesians chapter 6. We more interested in the fathers not provoking your children to wrath, and then we then we want the children to obey. No, you obey first. That's the imperative. That's the directive. See, the problem we have in our society is we are catering to our children. We negotiate with them. We want to be friends with them. We want to give them options. No, you ain't got no options. You don't have no freedom as a child if you are being raised by a parent or a set of parents in a marital relationship. Children got too many options. Do you remember the time when your mama and my mama and your daddy and your mama cooked food, set it on the table, and said, this is what supper is. Either you eat it or you starve. But you don't have no options. You remember the time when your parents took you to the store and bought you school clothes or church clothes, and there was no picking out your clothes. They picked them out for you. The world was a better place. Because, see, these kids feel entitled. And so many kids are putting so many families, mothers and fathers, or single mothers or single fathers under a strain financially because these children have unreasonable demand. The only thing that should tell you what your kids gonna eat and wear is how much money is in your pocket. What you can afford, not what they want. What they want is irrelevant. You don't put yourself under a financial strain to provide for your children what you can't afford to provide for them. Because you bring so many other issues into the relationship and within the dynamic of family when your children start telling you what they is and ain't gonna do, what they is and ain't gonna wear, and what they is and ain't gonna eat. That absolutely is what is destroying the fabric of family and the unit of family, whether it is a husband and a wife or a single mother or a father. These children are putting unreasonable demands on you. Your only job is to provide shelter, food, and clothes, and to provide a level of protection that your kids feel safe. They do all that other stuff when they get grown and get their own check and go get their own house, and then they have a level of freedom to afford to buy and to live however they want to live. You have a responsibility to provide for them the basics. And see, the problem, Patsy, is these crazy parents that talk about this stupid, idiotic statement, I don't want my children to go through what I went through. What in the, I almost said something. What was wrong with the way you was raised? What's wrong with the way you was raised? Your mom and daddy raised you. What's wrong with the way your mama and daddy raised you? You don't want your children to go through what you went through as a child. What's wrong with what you went through? You still alive, all y'all at the age of 60, and you got your own house, you living, you surviving, you ain't in jail. Yeah, you done made some mistakes, but you grew up in a stable environment. And you grew up in an environment, now listen to me when I say this. You grew up in an environment where your parents believe what the Bible says, that if you spare the rod, you spoil the child. You grew up in a disciplined environment where your parents use the rod to correct your behavior and get your behavior back in line. You know it's the truth what I'm saying. And you talking about you don't want your kids to grow up the way you grew up. What's wrong with the way you grew up? Then that's the problem we have. We have gotten so far away from the way we were grown up. The greatest generation is the baby boomers. The greatest generation that grew up when there was struggle and strain and where there was family and there was a strong man and there was a praying mother in the home. But the problem we have today is a lack of discipline in the home, where these children don't respect, and if you don't respect your parents, you'll never honor them. When there are no rules, there's no discipline, there's no structure, how am I ever going to honor the person I'm supposed to honor and I don't respect? And you ain't gonna have no respect without rules and discipline. My mama made me respect her. Talking back and talking under my breath, we wasn't gonna get it. If she said something, that was it. And so now you got these kids that they don't even talk under their breath no more. And they don't censor what they say to their parents. They cuss their parents out, say anything. And you wonder why there is no honor, because there's no respect. And I can give you this, because there's no fear. I was scared of my mama. I had a level of fear because my mama, as she got older and my mama was disabled, had a club foot, but I never was a young person or a child and wasn't scared of my mama, because I didn't know what she would do. I saw what she done to my sister one time, beat my sister down. My sister thought for sure she could whip my mama. I never will forget that. She thought for sure she was gonna whip my mama. She was bigger, she was younger, and she was athletic, and she fooled around and raised up and hit my mama, and my mama beat the dog snot out of her. That put the fear of God in me. You think these kids scared of their parents now? They have no fear. So if you don't have any fear, you don't have any respect. If you don't have any respect, you will not honor your parents. He says, children, obey your parents. Now that is a directive to the children. Paul puts the responsibility on children. You got to obey your parents. And then it says, fathers, provoke not your children. Now he says, children, you obey, but fathers, you make sure that when you are parenting your children, that you parent them in a loving way, in a caring way. Therefore, discipline, they'll receive it. But you can't parent out of anger and resentment. But listen, obeying your parents is not an option. See, like you start negotiating with your kid. Listen, if you take out the garbage, I'll give you an allowance. Wait a minute. First of all, this ain't no negotiation. You're going to take out the garbage. Your allowance ain't got nothing to do with taking out the garbage. You live here, you're going to have some responsibility. This is no negotiation. You're going to literally obey me. This is what I'm telling you you're going to do, and you're going to do it without a reward. Now we want to reward our kids, negotiate with our kids. Okay, that explains a lot. That explains a lot. That explains a lot. Because my mama didn't do that. My mama said, if you listen, if when I come home, this house better be clean. Yes. And it ain't no reward, ain't no $5. If I come home and this house ain't clean, it's gonna be some moving or some furniture. Now she did give us a reward when we went to the grocery store, and she did reward us, but it was when she felt like it. It wasn't tied to no chores, cleaning the house, picking up sticks in the yard. That was none of that. I don't know nothing about. First of all, we were too poor to get an allowance. Our allowance went toward the bills. Sure. Yeah, but my point is this, because I really want to get to this other flip side. When we get to the flip side of this coin, you got to get to the point where children and parents understand we give our children too many options and too many privileges. And we negotiate with people that if you negotiate them with these children, Bernie Mac said they become like terrorists. They'll blow up everything. And I see it so much, and they getting even worse now, because let me tell you something. Ain't no way in the world I'm going to use a digital device for my kid to stay calm when I tell them, sit down, shut up, and be quiet. I ain't giving you no cell phone or no MacBook for you to sit down and be quiet. That's the problem in our culture, in our society. We are raising a lot of entitled kids that, okay, you can't get them to act right. You can't get them to straighten up and do right, but then you want to send them to the school and they don't act right, but then you want to go up there and jump on the teacher. Okay, you can't even make them act right and concentrate at home. What you think the teacher gonna do? The first time they can't concentrate, they can't stay focused, they get on your nerve, you throw a MacBook or a cell phone or a tablet in front of them to get them calm so you can do what you want to do. And then they go to school and the teacher don't let them play on their MacBook and cell phone, but you want them to pay attention to school. And then when they get in trouble, you won't go up there and jump on the teacher. Because she can't make them do what she need them to do. You don't make them do what they need to do. We need to really lift up this idea of making our children obey. Nobody is perfect at doing it, but you're never going to make them obey if you give them too many privileges and make them feel entitled, and you don't have any discipline. And when I say discipline, I mean rules, but when I say discipline, I mean corporal punishment. We need to start putting a belt on some of these children. And I know DHS and the government will step in if you leave a weapon on them. Boy, if DHS was in my day, my mama would have been locked up every week. Because you can't put your hand on these kids now. And I'm going to say this while I'm in this area. Your children belong to you and not the government. Your kids belong to you. You had them kids. And the government has no right to tell you how to parent. They do not have a right to tell you how you can parent. I'm telling you, we have surrendered our kids over to the culture and to government and to the school. Listen, my children belong to me. I'm the one to teach my children morals, to teach my children values, to teach my children respect. That's my job. And so I'm telling you, it says to honor your parents, your father and your mother. And then I want to get to this. You honor them when you get young, while you're young, and when they get old. Now, when they get older, now y'all know one of my favorite movies is Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? Sidney Poitier. His dad is a mailman. And then Sidney Poitier choose that white woman. And his daddy get mad and said, boy, you owe me. And Sidney Poitier told him, I don't owe you a thing. If you toted that mail bag every day in the rain, sun, sleet or snow, I don't owe you nothing. I'm a grown man. That's what you were supposed to do. You brought me into this world. Now, at some point, the relationship changes. It is about respect. It is about honor, but I make my own choices. The tub starts sitting on its own bottom. So don't tell me as a grown man what I ought to do, who I can marry, and how I can live my life. That ain't on you no more. You done your job. Now, it is disrespectful for grown parents to be talking to grown children about the decisions they make. Only thing you can give them is your wisdom and advice. Don't get mad when they don't take it, because they don't have to take it. They grown. So this is where, because I'm segueing into something, Steen, therefore you cannot feel bad when your children make bad choices, because that ain't on you. You done your job to raise them. If you raise them, if you train them up in the way they should go and they depart from it, that ain't on you, that's on them. You shouldn't lose a night of sleep worrying about decisions that your children made after you trained them up in the right way, in the fear and the admonition of the Lord. If they depart from it, that's on them. Listen, I lose a little sleep because I'm praying, and I am concerned and I'm worried. But I ain't spending a dime. I ain't putting up my house. Listen, my kids know. If you go to jail, I'm going to visit you once a year. I'm not coming down there every month. I can't afford to. We do too much, and they think somehow or another, as a grown kid, I should sacrifice everything for them. I've already sacrificed everything for you. You wouldn't be where you are right now. This relationship has changed. It has matured. It has evolved. And now, as a child, what I owe you is respect and honor. As an old person, I let you live your life. My job is to, if you get to a point where you cannot take care of yourself, I assume the responsibility to help take care of you, to make sure that your older days are your better days. Whatever I can do to help make your life comfortable and balanced as an older adult, as my parents, that's my job to do that. But I don't owe you anything that's going to take resources from my family or from my children or from my life. You get what I'm saying? So as your parents get old, you owe them honor. But what we have in this particular text in the 5th chapter, around this 16th verse. Now listen, this is a commandment with a promise. He says that your days may be long, and it may be well with you in the land in which the Lord has given you. Now, really, everybody that I have read and studied and listened to conflicts on what this really means. Does it mean that you're going to live a long time? No. But what it does mean is the days that you do live will be good days if you honor and respect your parents. Now, listen, that's what it means. It doesn't mean that you're going to have a long life. It means that whatever life you have is going to be a good life. It's going to be a prosperous life. And that you're going to prosper if you respect and honor your parents. Some of y'all know you done the best you could when your parents got to a place where they couldn't take care of themselves. You didn't throw them off to the wolves. Now, I can tell some of us now, because I'm with y'all now. Ain't no telling where we going to be if we become too disabled. Because our kids ain't coming to see about us. All they want to know is where the life insurance, the deed, the money, and the bank accounts is. And we going straight to the nursing home. They ain't spending their day talking about you come live with me. And if you do go live with them, they're going to charge you. They're going to take your whole Social Security check. And they're going to get the car, the deed, the house, and put it all in their name. And they're going to charge you rent. I tell parents now, listen, don't be saving no money for your children. You better live with that money while you alive and healthy. What you saving it for? But I'm just telling you, the way these children are now, today, they don't have time to take care of us. Michael, we going to a nursing home. Or you going to live with Patsy, and you and Patsy ain't going to be able to live in the same house. Yeah, that's right. Got an ex-wife and 2 children. But I'm just telling you, you honor them when you get old, and he says that your days may be long upon the earth. It does mean that you're going to have a good life, and also in the land in which the Lord has given you, you're going to have a prosperous life. Now, certain things you can do and you can't do for your parents as they get older, and if you can't do it, you just can't do it. Sometimes their care is too much for you to handle. I wouldn't recommend anybody, I'm talking about anybody, to try to take care of somebody in their home that's got dementia or Alzheimer's. You are not going to be able to do it. Now, if they are just sick and physically sick, you can do it. But to take care of somebody who has dementia or Alzheimer's that don't know who you are, don't remember who you are, and can't remember how to tie their shoe, that is a challenge. And that is beyond a level of care that you can give. Now, if they disabled and bedridden, you can do that, but you're going to be kind of restrained on what you can do there because you can't pick them up and clean them. You got to know when the care of your parents is more than you can handle. And you got to either bring somebody in or you got to put them in a facility that can give them a better level of care. But as long as they can do for themselves, you need to let them stay and live independent. But these children will rush you to the nursing home now. You better not fool around and become disabled too early. They'll put you out and declare you mentally disabled. I'm telling these children something else. I want my help. Listen, 2 things I want God to give me is let me keep my right mind until I close my eyes, and give me a reasonable portion of health and strength. Let me be like Mr. Jefferson, Mr. Sistrom, and Gladys. still driving halfway across the country. And let me tell you something, the first time she get lost on the way there back, she ain't going no more. When she called one of us to go come pick her up, that's it. We're going to put on Megabus or Greyhound, and that's how she going up yonder to Chattanooga. But you know, when you get older, you still able to do what you can do. That's a blessing, ain't it? Miss Jefferson, you what, 94? How old are you, 94? 95, still driving, still getting up, putting your clothes on. And she matching pretty good today. Got a little breast cancer hat on, and didn't nobody tell her it's breast cancer month. Now that's pretty much got your own mind at 90-something years old. That's a blessing. That you still have use of your faculties. Pray for that. And one of the ways you get that is you just live a good life. Treat your parents good, and God said you're going to have a good life yourself and a prosperous life. Now let me get to this Ephesians text, and I'm closing. I'm going to close when I get through with this Ephesians text, because this is the one that this Ephesians text is talking about, Paul talking about these dynamic relationships, and really the book of Ephesians is a church manual to the church on how to conduct different groups in the church. And the last thing Paul says in Ephesians chapter 6, children, obey your parents in the Lord. Simple. Ephesians chapter 6. Now listen, you can't get no simpler than that. What if we just went back to that principle as Christian homes and as a guide to parent? Expect our children to obey. Man, listen, it's different. Now listen, as a grandfather, I have to limit how much time I can spend with my grandchildren because they want me to parent the way they want me to parent. That don't work for me. Because little Bubba and Buck ain't coming to my house and having free range in my house. There are rules, there are do's, there are don'ts. This is what you can touch, what you can't touch. And I ain't going to McDonald's every time you get home. Either you're going to eat this bacon, biscuit, and egg, or you're going to go hungry. And you're not going to sit up in my house all day. Well, what I'm going to do, Papa, you're going to go outside and figure out something to do. But you ain't sitting up in here all day looking in my face. And you ain't going to be on my TV when I'm trying to watch the news playing no video game. I'm just saying it's different. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. What's hard about that? That we don't realize in the culture in which we live today, to expect our children to obey. Okay, let me tell you something. Let me ask you this question. Growing up, did your parents ever ask you this question? And I know they didn't. What you want to eat tonight? Not one time did your parent ask you what you want to eat tonight. Man, let me tell you something. I hated rice and Simon patties. I hated them. I hate them now. And my mama would be so petty because she knew we didn't like it. That's what she cooked for supper. And I remember one night, green beans, Simon patties, and rice, and a biscuit. And I said, I ain't eating nothing. She said, I tell you what, you better not get from that table until that food is ate. At 10 o'clock, I started eating. We sat down at the table around 7. And listen, life went on as normal. She cleaned up the kitchen, got the other kids from bed, went there and watched TV, didn't care nothing about what I was doing. All she knew, you wasn't getting up off that table until you ate them Simon patty, green bean, and rice, and that biscuit. And I ended up eating around 10 o'clock, went to bed, because that's the way it was. Because you got to give your kids a sense of appreciation of how hard you work to put that rice, green beans, and biscuit on that table. You had limited resources back then. And my mama, look, boy, I worked hard to put this food on this table. You gonna eat this? And then the other thing, and I don't want to talk too much about my own life, but let me tell you something. Hand-me-downs was just the way things was. Let me tell you two things my mama did. She always bought our clothes too big because you had to grow into them. Y'all know something about hymns in the waist where you can't even sit back in the church because the hem on the back so big, and cuffs in your pants to be let out. See, Steen don't know nothing about that. She grew up in New York City. She had more than enough. We were struggling down here in Mississippi, and we had hand-me-down. Now, how many of y'all remember having to take your Sunday clothes off when you came from church? Take your school clothes off when you came home. She don't know nothing about none of this stuff. Because listen, parents value the level of hard work. It took them money to get all of that. Now we doing a lot better, but still these kids feel entitled. And if they feel entitled in your house, they're gonna feel entitled when they leave your house. They think people in every part of society and culture ought to do for them what you do for them at home. You set the expectations way too high when they leave home. It's different now. So he just says, obey your parent. Then I'm going to get this part in verse 4 where he says, and let's explore what this means. And you fathers, first thing he says that the primary responsibility of raising children is the father's responsibility. I know single mothers do it. Ain't nobody, listen, don't y'all start looking at me all side-eyeing under your glasses. I understand we live in a culture where mothers have to assume the responsibility of rearing children. But raising them ought to be primarily on the father. Women are a part of that rearing of children, but the raising, he says, fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath. In other words, a father needs to be involved in the raising of his children. Whether he is in the home or not in the home, he has a prominent role to play. Now, if the father is not there because of death and the woman is a widow, okay, we understand that circumstance. But in the perfect world, fathers need to be involved in the rearing of their children, in the raising of their children. Because it is a father brings discipline and structure and accountability. A mother brings love, compassion, and teaches their children how to love, forgive, how to nourish. But the father brings that structure, that discipline, that order. And so he says, fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training and in the admonition of the Lord. I'm going to deal with those two words, in the training and in the admonition. The admonition is one thing, training is another. So fathers have to really be instructional in their rearing and raising of children. He has to set an example based upon the Word of God, the principles of the Word of God. Now listen, it's a whole lot of children who made it and their fathers weren't worth a quarter. Had no involvement in their raising or rearing. Those are exceptions to the rule, because sometimes you can become a good person and you can learn from your father's bad example as much as you can his good example. You get what I'm saying? Because sometimes a father that's not there and neglects his children and he is a derelict father, children can learn a great lesson how not to be like him. That's not a bad thing, because there's one thing I think Joseph was really lamenting about. He did regret not being able to grow up in his father's house, but also you have to say that it's not kind of a good thing that he didn't grow up in his father's house, that God got him out early and his father threw him in the pit and he ended up in Egypt, because sometimes the father's influence can be negative. Because you got to understand this. Now look, I preached this the other night when I preached in Tupelo. Do you not know that all of Joseph's problems stem from his father giving him the coat of many colors? That one decision made him be despised by his brothers. that his father gave him something that his father showed him, in a sense, preferential treatment and said to the other 11 brothers, Joseph is my favorite. He gave him a coat of many colors. And listen, when I taught that the other night, I said the difference between the coat was really not a coat of many colors, but the coat was significant because in those days, when you were a servant, you wore a short coat, a short sleeve coat, because you needed to work. But when you wore a long sleeve jacket, that means you weren't a servant and you weren't expected to do any work. You were royalty. And the coat that Jacob gave Joseph was a long sleeve coat. The brothers had a short sleeve coat, and the coat that Jacob gave Joseph was a coat that went beyond the knees, because when the coat went beyond the knees, it signified royalty, and it meant that you didn't have to do a lot of work. It was long sleeve, but it went beyond the knees almost to the ankle. So that coat looked different than the coats that the other brothers had. Theirs was short sleeve, and it didn't go beyond the ankles because they needed to work. When giving his son that coat, it signifies that he wasn't going to be a servant, that he was royalty, and that he was a person of nobility and authority, and it caused his brothers to despise him. So it was one act that Jacob did that made his other sons hate his favorite son, Joseph. That's what got that situation messed up. And so sometimes a father's influence can be negative. And we know who Jacob was. He was a trickster. Everything he got was by tricking his brother Esau. So sometimes you can have a father in your life and it can be a good thing, but you can also have an absent father and it can also be a good thing. But the ideal situation is to have a father that trains you and puts in you admonition or fear and reverence and respect for God. I'm just telling you. And so he says, provoke not your children to wrath. What does this word provoke literally mean? A father should be intentional in his rearing and raising of children, and he should try to do all he can to navigate the difficulties of parenting a girl and a boy. He has to avoid trying to be favorable toward any of the children. He has to be fair and balanced. There are no favorites. He has no preference. And he has to be able to parent equitably and fairly. And that literally means he has to treat those children like they're going to leave his house one day. And they're not always going to be under his care and custody. See, we raise children like they're going to always be our children. They're going to go out and have their own children and get their own wives and make their own way in the world. So you raise your children like they're going to leave your house. And I don't even want to get on the part about they sure need to leave. They sure need to leave. God knows they need to leave. Listen, I don't want to have to go visit my children in the bedroom of my house. I want to go up the street, down the street, across the state line, up the highway, down the highway. I want some distance. So I'm just telling you, and let me give you this, and I'm closing. Once you raise your children, it's not your responsibility, and you shouldn't feel guilty if they make mistakes and fail. That's not on you, that's on them. The Bible says, train up a child in the way it should go. That's in Proverbs. And when they get old, they will not depart from that training or that admonition and that fear. But they're not going to listen. And it really means that it's not going to leave them. You got to quit feeling guilty when your children make mistakes as grown children or as young adults. I have so many parents that come to me and they feel guilty because of the mistakes their children have made. That ain't on you. If your daughter gets pregnant as a teenager, that ain't on you. Unless you was just a degenerate. Now, it is on you if you let a man come live in your house with your daughter and you don't have no rules that if he do come see her, they can't leave the living room. If you let that boy go lay all up in the bedroom, close the door, that's on you. That's on you. It's not your responsibility if your son go out here and just live a degenerate life and go to jail and get into some criminality. That ain't on you. That's on him. You can't live the rest of your life feeling guilty about being a parent when you done the best you could. And so many parents feel so guilty. They will go broke because they feel guilty and they think they can fix their grown children who go out here and make mistakes. See, this is my point. If you have some children as a teenage mother, you raising them kids. I ain't disrupting my life at all. I'm not a babysitter. Grandparenting is optional. I see my grandkid when I want to. I'm just telling you, so many parents feel guilty. Now listen, if your children go out here and be something that you don't like, listen, just don't like it. Don't try to fix them. What you trying to fix them for? Okay, that's fine. I don't care about you being whatever you want to be. You can be whatever you want to be when you're out there in the world, but when you come to my house, you my child. There are some expectations that I have. This world has gotten turned upside down. Do you not know? My mama, whatever you want to say about her, when we grew up, we sat down at the dinner table. That don't even exist no more. Everybody, mama and daddy cook the food and everybody go to their own space. Some in the kitchen, bedroom, on the porch, folks just go eat, sitting, watching TV. We sit at the dinner. Y'all remember the dinner table? Yes. Conversation, all the food, sitting in them pots. You dig in them pots and get you something to eat out of there. You remember that? The dinner table doesn't exist in America. We need to bring back the dinner table. Sunday dinner. That needs to be brought back. And then listen, if your child is under 18, coming to church is not an option. You don't get to pick whether you come to church and you live in my house. If that's my thing, I go to church on Sunday. We leave too many grown, teenage, young adult kids at home on Sunday. You ain't laying up in my house while I'm at church. Matter of fact, you ain't laying up in my house while I'm going to work every day. You is not laying up in my house when listen, when I leave and go to work, everybody leave and go to work. Now, if you on the swing shift, you still ain't staying in my house. You got to find somewhere to go. I don't trust you around my whatnots. I shouldn't have to hide all my jewelry. Put my money in a safe, in the wall. Don't make no sense. But what I'm saying is this stuff has gotten out of hand because when you think about children are lost, but parents, we got to do a better job. These children got to come to church. We got to bring back this family dynamic where, and see, I don't believe in all this safe space and stuff. All this old modern discipline. And then my thing, and this is the other thing that I really want to say too. Now, y'all going to really get mad at me right here. They're going to really get mad at me. We got to quit normalizing some of this crazy, insane stuff. Listen, we normalize stuff that ain't normal. This stuff ain't normal. You can't normalize insanity. Make these kids think that the stuff they do, that they try to bring to us and they try to push on us, okay, we accept it. Now listen, I'm going to accept you. I'm going to love you because you're going to always be my child. But some things you can't do around me. You can do them wherever you want to do them. If that's your choice, that's where you want to live, that's fine. But don't come around me expecting that I'm going to normalize it and tell me that I don't love you. I don't love what you do, but my love for you ain't going to never change. I'm just saying you can't do it around me. I'm not going to normalize your insanity. I remember one time I told my mom I'm going to drop out of school. She slapped the taste out of my mouth. She said, boy, get in there and go to bed. And iron your clothes so you can go to school the next morning. She wasn't going to listen to that nonsense. That's the way we ought to. Listen, at a certain point, you get to make choices for yourself. But between the ages of 4 and 12, you ain't got no choices. Between the ages of 12 to 18, I give you a little freedom. I give you a little choice. I'm not saying that nobody is perfect in raising children, but we got to admit these children are out of hand. You see them little things at Walmart where they be carrying on. And don't go to the schoolhouse, Jesus. I be thinking to myself, ain't no way in the world. And like I was in the store one time in Tupelo, and the little kid, mama said, you can't have no potato chip. And the little thing just fell out all over the floor. And then she reached to grab the little thing, and he kicked her. And she pulled him up and put him in the bucket, and he slapped her. And then through the whole store, he was just hollering and screaming. Now, if he doing that with her, imagine what he do at school, at daycare. Look at what she is producing or what he's producing. When a child can cut up like that with you, imagine what they're going to do anywhere else. And I wanted to say something. Yes. and see, people be talking about, you don't need to embarrass your kids. Shoot, my mama embarrassed me all the time. She, man, my mama. We think about me. You know, back in the day, me and my cousin, we be talking about some of the stuff our mama did. You know, we went to the grocery store. Man, my mama would hit you anywhere with anything, anything. I know. See, because the government think they own your children. You can't tell your children what to do. You can't tell your children that the foolishness they trying to tell you that they are and what they gonna do. You can't correct them. And I'm just saying, I won't get in trouble, get banned off Facebook. But I'm telling you, you ain't coming to me with certain stuff. I'm just telling you, it ain't happening. You can do that foolishness all you want to anyway, but you is not coming up in here with all that foolishness. No.